All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for coming along to Camroo's final oral presentation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Catherine Daniel. I'm a professor here and the chair of Camroo's panel, and it's been an absolute delight to be the chair of this PhD. Before we begin, may I acknowledge and celebrate the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet this morning, the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples, and pay respects to elders past and present. Like with every presentation, I think there are always links and things we can learn, and particularly when Camroo has been looking at questions of climate change and flooding and those big changes, we know that there are so many things that we can learn from here and from the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people who have those challenges here, and will tell us that even in the ANU, Sullivan's Creek will always return to where it should have been. And so, we have flooding here too. So, Camroo, it's a real delight to allow you to speak and present your work. I know you'll be speaking for about 30 to 40 minutes, is that correct? And then we'll have time for questions and answers, and we'd really appreciate all of your questions both online and in the room as Camroo's just preparing the last phases of his submission. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am MD Kamru. Welcome to my final seminar presentations. The title of my seminar is Enhancing Innovation to Adapt Rice Cultivation to Flash Flooding in Bangladesh. Catherine Daniel is my primary supervisor from Fana School of Environment and Society, and Stephen Cream from Institute for Climate Change, Energy and Disaster Solutions is another panel member. And another panel members is Atahar Choudhury from University of Guelph. First, I would like to acknowledge the country. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I live and work, the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. I pay my respects to elders past and present. I want to thank Australia for being very warm and welcome for me. I have spent last 4 years in Australia, visited several places with my family, my daughter, and enjoyed a lot. I have visited cherry gardens, the Floriades, ANU, everywhere, whatever I could, before COVID and after COVID in a safe way. So I really grateful to Australia for being so warm for me, welcoming for me. It was one of the most enjoyable 4 years period in my life. So thanks to Australia. I'm highly grateful to Australia and its people. Background of my study. Climate change is a major concern for the sustainability and development in the world. In general, climate change destroys the economy of every country, and it increases the hunger and poverty among the people. It is projected that by 2030, more than 100 million people will be pushed below the poverty level due to various effects of climate change. Flooding is the leading threat of climate change in the world. There is little areas in this world which is not affected by flooding. About 23% of world population are affected by flooding almost every year, and flooding affects life and livelihoods as well. Flooding every year destroy and affect Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a flat, low-lying areas. In this area, several locations in every year is overflooded because Bangladesh is located in the delta place. So flood is a major threat in Bangladesh. Recently, in June 2020, the flood that happened, it affected 7.2 million people of this country. In Bangladesh, flood affects life and agriculture sector severely. In Bangladesh, agriculture sector is the backbone of the economy. It contributes more than 30% of the GDP and 70% of the livelihood. In Bangladesh, rice is a staple food of the citizens, and which is grown more than 75% crop area of Bangladesh. Rice is profoundly grown in Haur areas. Haur area is a large bowl-shaped floodplain depressions. It is located in the northeastern part of the country. And in the Haur area, the average yield of rice is more than the national average because the soil and the geographical location is very much favorable for rice farming. And mostly, Boro rice is cultivated in the Haur areas. Boro rice is considered as winter rice in Bangladesh, which is cultivated during November to April every year. The Boro rice, which is cultivated in the Haur areas, it contributes 16.5% of total rice production in Bangladesh. So it shows the significance of Boro rice and Haur areas in the national food security of Bangladesh. So this is the map of Bangladesh, and in the northeastern part, the red spot, I can show here in the zoom way. So these are the 7 administrative districts that constitute the Haur in Bangladesh. The Department of Agriculture Extension is the largest public sector extension agency in Bangladesh that implement crop-related policies, projects, and programs and help farmers to increase their production sustainably. Broadly, DAE provides extension and advisory services to farmers and farming sector actors. As such, extension and advisory service agencies can be defined as all the institutions from different sectors that facilitate farmers' access to knowledge, information, and technologies, their interaction with markets, research, and education, and the development of technical, organizational, and management skills and practices. In Bangladesh, from the commencement of DAE, it has embraced several levels of transformation based on the needs and demands of the Bangladeshi people and farming sector. The recent strategies of DAE is largely aligned with National Agricultural Extension Policy of Bangladesh, which is called NAEP. NAEP mostly focus on developing partnerships and enhanced collaboration among various actors in the farming sector to better utilize the information and resources and expertise. NAES, as such, it can be comparable with the agricultural innovation systems thinking. Agriculture innovation system we can conceptualize as a network of actors, individuals or organizations, which together with supporting institutions and policies in the agriculture related sectors, bring existing or new products, processes, and forms of organizations into social and economic use. The agricultural innovation system thinking enhance innovation in agriculture sector. In the current context of agriculture in the world, innovation is extremely important to help agriculture sector adapt to various complex problems such as climate change adaptation, deforestation, nutrition depletion, etc. In my research, I have conceptualized innovation as the process whereby individuals or organizations bring existing or new product, processes, and forms of organizations into social and economic use to increase effectiveness, competitiveness, resilience to shocks, or environmental sustainability. Problem of my study, problem statement. Although Boro rice is profoundly produced in the Haur areas, but this Boro rice is affected by flash flooding almost every year. Flash flooding is a sudden localized flooding that is caused by heavy rainfall in a small catchment of area. Early flash flood, that is during March to April, coincide with the harvesting period of Boro rice, when the rice is almost ready to harvest. Recently, due to climate change, flash flooding is occurring 2 to 3 weeks before the harvesting of Boro rice. And all the projections and simulation model conclude that in the near future, there will be early and more flash flooding in the Haur areas, which means that the Boro rice is going to be more vulnerable in the upcoming days in Bangladesh. These are some of the picture of flash flooding. We can see that this crop is almost ready to harvest, but within one night, it is over flooded. Here, these all are in a rice field, but now we can see that it is just like a river or lake. Here, farmers could harvest a little of their harvest, but most of the rice crop, it is ripened but overflooded here. The same here, almost ready, but they have started to harvest, but most of them are flooded. In this picture, this is in the same location. If we focus on these two buildings, they are the same building, and this picture are captured by me within 7 days. This one first I capture, and after 7 days, this is the picture. So here we see the entire field, the rice, and the crop is started to ripening. And farmers have started to harvest little bit. Just after 7 days, farmers lose their most of the harvest. All is drowned with this. No one will believe that just before 7 days it was like this. So this is the severity of flash flooding in Bangladesh, in our areas. Based on this situation, as a public agency of advisory services, DAE considers our area as a special zone. They have formulated different strategies like in strengthening institutional linkages, community participations, all those strategies they are following. Instead of their support and strategies, in 2017, the flash flood was the most devastating in the history of Bangladesh. So it means that there are definitely some loopholes, or the services provided by DA is not enough to help the farmers adapt to flash flooding. In the literature, there are limited knowledge on how extension services can help farming sectors to adapt to climate change. In addition to this, the concept of agricultural innovation system, it is in the very early stage. Therefore, many concepts, theories, principles of agricultural innovation system has not been empirically tested in the field. Therefore, the knowledge, there existing knowledge gap between what extension services should do to enhance innovation and adapt to climate change, in particular farming systems, for instance, rice farming, and for various climatic stressors such as flash flooding. Based on this knowledge gap, the aim of my research is to investigate the role of extension services in enhancing innovation to help rice farming adapt to flash flooding. To achieve this research aim, I have formulated 4 research questions. First research question is how extension services can support innovation in farming sector to adapt to climate change. Next, how DAE can enhance and strengthen innovation networks. The third research question is how DAE can facilitate learning among the farming actors to adapt to flash flooding. And last research question is what are the capacity and rules DAE need to follow to perform all those services. Methodological aspects. To examine all those research questions, I have used different theoretical lenses. For instance, for research question 1, I have used agricultural innovation systems theory. To examine research question 2, I have examined innovation networks theory. And social learning and capacity development for agricultural innovation systems theory I have used for research question 3 and 4. The research was conducted at Shonir Hau in Sunamganj district. Sunamganj district is known for Hau area, Hau districts, and it is highly affected by flash flooding. Shonir Hau is one of the largest Hau in Bangladesh and highly affected by flash flood every year. I have collected data with a number of respondents, including DA staff members, farmers, actors from private sector, actors from research institutions, etc. And my fieldwork was conducted from December 2018 to July 2019, just before pandemic starts in the world. So I'm lucky enough that I have collected all the data and then come to ANU, then COVID pandemic and lockdown, etc. So I did it before COVID. So this is the research location. If you see the map of Bangladesh, this red spot, this is the Sunamganj district, administrative district. In this district, the Shonir Hau, if we zoom the picture, this area covers the Shonir Hau in Sunamganj district. My research, the epistemological position of my research largely focus on the pragmatism, in which they suggest that any human inquiry is based on interpretation and values that are grounded on the empirical and local experiences. That's why I have used mixed method research approach and combined a number of data collection tools, including focus group discussions, secondary data, semi-structured interviews, surveys, etc. These are some pictures of my data collection at the rice field with the farmers and local people. Data collection, focus group with the farmers, talking with farmers at the tea stall and collecting data. Talking with DAE people at their office, discussing with farmers at the tea stall. These are some pictures in the research field. Talking with farmers and various stakeholders. Talking with front level DAE staff, with local farmers at their fields, at the tea stall. They are the DAE staff officers. So I was interviewing them in their office. It is in the shop of the local farmers. This is the crop saving embankment in the house. So I am visiting this area and talking with the local people, how they work here. This is a focus group discussion done at the home yard of a farmer. Well, findings of my research. The first research question was how extension services can enhance innovation to adapt to climate change. In this research, I have used the agricultural innovation systems theory, and I have collected data from secondary sources, different resources, reports, and organizational recommendations. Based on those data, and after analyzing, I have found that to enhance innovation in the agriculture sector, extension services need to transform their work. They need to broaden their scope by connecting different actors, different stakeholders, both inside and outside of agriculture sector. In addition to this, they need to support the interaction, sharing of knowledge, and facilitation of learning so that the actors can have a comprehensive understanding of how to solve the problem. To perform all those things, definitely as these are some new roles, so extension services should have new capacities to perform these roles. The findings of this research question is published in the Journal of Advancements in Agricultural Development. Research question 2 was how DAE can strengthen innovation networks. In this research, innovation network I conceptualize as the group of people who voluntarily share knowledge, information, and resources to develop an existing or new product or process in the society. In my research, I have found that in rice cultivation, there are generally two stages, agronomic stage and harvesting stage. In agronomic stage, farmers usually sow their seeds, they provide intercultural operations, irrigations, pest management, all those things. In the harvesting stage, they ensure the maturity of the harvest, they harvest their crop and take away to their harvesting ground and do some post-harvest activities. So in general, there are two stages I have identified, agronomic stage and harvesting stage. I have found that DAE has done most of the support in the agronomic stage, but they had less support in the harvesting stage, this stage which is highly affected by flash flooding. So I am showing here how DAE is serving them in the agronomic stage. So here the DAE farmer, I mentioned DAE farmer are those farmers who are directly supported by DAE. And I have examined how DAE farmers get information or support from DAE and other actors to perform their agronomic activities. I know this picture is very busy, just let me explain. If you focus at the center, the blue dots, it is DAE and this is research institutions. So most of the farmers are connected with DAE and research institution to get the information and resources, and they are formal actors. If you look at the periphery, friends, relatives, private company, harvesting laborer, NGOs, they are located in the periphery, and it means that a less number of DAE farmers are connected with these actors for information and resources. And if we look deeply, they all are informal actors mostly. So for agronomic network or agronomic activities, DAE farmers are mostly connected, or most of the DAE farmers are connected with formal actors. A less number of DAE farmers are connected with informal actors. If we look at another group of farmers, that is non-DAE farmers, these are the farmers who are not directly supported by DAE. So let's look what about their agronomic network. What are the actors in their network for agronomic activities? If you look at the center, we see that relatives, local input dealers, neighboring farmers, harvesting laborers, most of the non-DAE farmers are connected, or they get information from these actors, and they all are informal actors. If you look at the periphery, we see DAE, it's located in the periphery, research institutions. So for non-DAE farmers, most of the non-DAE farmers secure information and resources from informal actors. And in small number of non-DAE farmers secure information from formal actors. So there is distinct difference between DAE farmers and non-DAE farmers. We have examined the number of frequency, what number of frequency or how much they contact each actor for agronomic activities. We tell it in a technical term, ties. It is what frequency a farmer contact with other actors. And we tell it that strong tie and weak tie. Strong tie means farmer connects and get information with other actors more frequently. Weak tie means there has loosely bounded connection, less communications. If we compare DAE farmers and non-DAE farmers for agronomic activities, we see that DAE farmers has strong tie with DAE and with other DAE farmers. And if you look at the non-DAE farmers, we see that non-DAE farmers have strong tie with local input dealers, non-DAE farmers, and relatives. They all are informal actors. So there is also a distinction in the strong tie and weak tie of DAE and non-DAE farmers. So from this research question, and based on the findings, we can conclude that DAE needs to strengthen the innovation network of farmers, not only for agronomic stages, for all the stages, particularly for harvesting stage. And DAE need to support the innovation configuration of the whole farmers. How the innovation, what it looks like, the configuration of innovation network. Here, based on the findings, we conclude that in the innovation network, both formal and informal actors should be connected, should be included. And there should have a balance between weak ties and strong ties. Because strong ties and weak ties both are important, but only focusing one ties is not enough. In strong ties, it is good for the collective actions, but in strong ties, we don't get enough new information. In weak ties, it is good for getting new information, a lot of innovative ideas, but it is not always good for doing any collective actions. So there should have balance between strong tie and weak tie in the innovation network. And these are the things extension service supporter should support and should consider to strengthen the innovation network in the flash flooding context. The findings of this research has been published in the Journal of Sustainability. Third research question was how DAE can facilitate learning. In this research, we have examined different innovation barriers and learning outcomes. For enhancing innovation, learning should be facilitated in a way so that innovation barriers can be overcome and we can ensure the learning outcomes. So these first two lines shows the ways of overcoming innovation barriers. If we want to overcome the innovation barriers or barriers to innovation, DA should facilitate different learning approaches in a way that includes different actors, including farmers, private sector actors, actors from research institutions, etc. And DA should facilitate this discussion of those actors and seek feedback on various suggested agronomic practices. In addition to this, DA need to facilitate learning approaches in a way that support the discussion on local demands, local concerns, local needs, and also how to effectively utilize the local knowledge, local experiences, and local and natural resources, for instance, land, embankment, water, etc. In order to support the learning outcomes, DA needs to facilitate different instrumental support and farming inputs, because in the research we have found that due to DA facilitated learning approaches, farmers and other actors have gained new understanding. For instance, they have learned about utilization of short duration rice varieties, application of new pesticides method, etc. But they cannot practice those in the field. For instance, they have learned about new short duration rice variety, but they cannot practice because these rice varieties or rice seeds are not available in the local shops. So they know or they have developed some knowledge, but they cannot translate their knowledge into action. So to ensure that action, DA needs to provide some instrumental support as well. The findings of this research has been recently published in the Journal of Agricultural Education and Extension. Fourth research question was how the organizational capacity of DA can be developed so that they can perform these roles. In this capacity aspect, we have examined 4 capacity for innovations. These are the 4 capacity: capacity to navigate complexity, capacity to collaborate, capacity to reflect and learn, and capacity to engage in strategic and political processes. We have examined the capacity of DA in 2 aspects: organizational aspects and individual aspects. As such, capacity has 3 aspects: individual aspects, organizational aspects, and enabling dimension aspects. In my research, I have examined and compared the capacity of DA in individual and organizational aspects. In my findings, I have found that for a number of capacity aspects, for instance, capacity to navigate complexity, here the individual capacity is higher than the organizational one, significantly higher. Capacity to reflect and learn, we see that individual capacity is higher than the organizational capacity. It means that there is gap in organizational capacity of DAE to helping farmers adapt to flash flooding. Then we have identified a number of variables that influence the organizational capacity of DAE. These variables are mostly from 2 dimensions, 2 aspects. Number 1, how DAE as an organizations are valued in different development forums. And second dimensions are how DAE supports staff competency to their staffs to develop to provide them different supports. For example, these variables, influential position of DAE in various committees. Only these variables have significant influence on capacity to navigate complexity, capacity to collaborate, and capacity to engage in strategic and political processes. In my research, when I was discussing with DA staff about their capacity, they told that in an irrigation committee, earlier I was the president, so I can call the meeting and all the stakeholders and I can run the meeting. But now, due to recent policy change, I am only a simple member of the irrigation committee. So although irrigation is my responsibility, I mainly work with irrigations, but now I am not the president. I am as a general or simple member. So I have no power to call the meeting. And in the meeting, I have that level of power to raise my voice. So what I do, in many cases, I don't join the irrigation meeting. So here we can see the importance of position, delegation, authority of DA in various committees to raise their voice, to work better. So this is the case of influential position of DA in various committees. If we focus on other points, for instance, a culture of freedom of work for the DA staff, it influences the capacity to navigate complexity. It influences the capacity to engage in strategic and political process. If we see the manageable workload of the staff, it influences the capacity to reflect and learn, because if they have too much burden of their work, they cannot reflect, what am I doing? They are just running, and what is given order, they try to implement. They don't have time to understand. They don't have time to reflect, reiterate their work. So these are the aspects. If we see the recognition and rewards for good performance, these variables significantly affect the capacity to collaborate and capacity to reflect and learn. So there are a number of aspects here that influence significantly the organizational capacity of TA. So based on these findings, we conclude that there should be more emphasis, more focus on enhancing the organizational capacity of TA. And to enhance organizational capacity, it is essential to engage DAE in various development forums and give them opportunity to raise their voice. In addition to this, there should have the opportunity for management of these staff competency, so that the overall capacity of DAE organizations increased. So the conclusion of my research. Based on the findings, I conclude that the current rules, responsibilities, and traditional activities of extension advisory services is not enough. It should be transformed in the context of flash flooding. New mandates, rules, and strategies should be followed to support innovation networks and social learning among the farming actors. In order to perform these new rules, definitely there should have organizational capacity for extension services. The contribution of my research to knowledge. As at the beginning, I have described that there are limited knowledge on how extension services can support farming sector to adapt to climate change. In my research, I have advanced this knowledge through the lens of agricultural innovation systems and put forward how extension services can help and enhance agricultural innovation system in a climate change context. About innovation networks, in the literature, there are ample of suggestions that innovation network should be strengthened, innovation network should be focused, a lot of things. But what should be the configuration of innovation network for a particular climatic context or flooding context? It is not mentioned. My research put forward an advanced knowledge in the configuration of innovation networks, and I have recommended that there should be inclusion of both formal and informal actors, and there should have a balance between strong ties and weak ties in the actors. Barriers to innovation. Previous literature suggests that different barriers to innovation should be overcome and drivers should be supported so that innovation is enhanced. But how learning can do this and how learning should be facilitated so that we can overcome those barriers, it is not specifically mentioned for rice farming or flash flooding. In my research, I have shown how extension services can facilitate learning so that different barriers to innovations, such as lack of issue framing, lack of participations, lack of capacity, those barriers can be overcome. So this is another contribution of my research in the literature. Organizational capacity of extension services. Usually, if we tell about capacity, always we focus on the individual capacity, individual person, giving them training, knowledge sharing, providing them, attending them through workshops, seminar, blah, blah, blah. So everything is about individual one. There is little focus on organizational capacity. In my research, I have identified that organizational capacity is extremely important, and there is a significant gap in organizational capacity. And by this way, I have identified a number of variables that influence the organizational capacity and how organizational capacity can be enhanced. So by this way, my research contribute to the knowledge on the ways of developing organizational capacity of extension services for enhancing innovation. Future research. Based on my research, a number of future research windows has been opened. For example, I can say innovation networks of extension staff. It is essential to understand from which actors extension staff get information and to which actors extension staff share their information. If we can understand their information getting source and information sharing source, then we can focus on the knowledge landscape floating around extension services, and then we can recommend extension services how they can utilize those knowledge sources better so that the farmers and other actors can get maximum benefit of information and resources. Inter-farmer cluster connections. Very fun that in my research, I have found that DAE farmers and non-DAE farmers, these two group of farmers, they don't share information with each other. They live in the same area, but it seems that they don't like each other. And there are a lot of funny jokes, a lot of story there. Maybe I will tell it later or after this session, that why they don't like each other, why they don't share information each other. So this is a major problem. If there is a blockage in information sharing in the same area, so the people will be deprived. So it is essential to ensure the inter-cluster connections. So in my research, due to time and other limitations, I could not explore all those things. Although I have some story, but from research perspective, I could not explore or dig out all those things. So in future research, it would be a very interesting research to understand why there are less connections between the different farmer groups in the Haur areas. If we can explore those things, we can suggest better ways how we can ensure the cluster connections and better utilize the knowledge and resources in the Haur area. Female farmers. In the Haur area, most of the farmers are male farmers, but still there are also some female farmers who work with rice. And unfortunately, DAE, they mostly focus on the farmers who are male. So DAE work with the mostly male farmers and a little bit female farmers. And for this reason, I have just focused on the the male farmers in my research and collected data. So it would be a new research avenue and interesting findings to see if we collect data from female farmers and to compare if there is any difference between male farmers and female farmers in the Haur areas. And these findings will help to ensure the gender responsive and inclusive innovation for the Haur areas. So this is another interesting avenue for future research. Capacity at enabling environment level. As I mentioned, that capacity has three dimensions: individual one, the organizational one, and the enabling dimension one. Enabling dimension means the policy level, the government level, the national level capacity. In my research, I only examine the individual one and the organizational one. But it is extremely important to understand the another layer of capacity at the enabling environment level. If we can understand the enabling environment level as well, then we can get a comprehensive picture of what is the capacity situation there, which actor or which sector is more prominent, which sector have gap, how to maintain synergy in the capacity of extension service level. So a future research for enabling environment capacity can be done in this aspect. Finally, I want to acknowledge a number of people. I'm sorry that I could not include everyone in my, because this is a slide and lots of information, but I could not put everyone in my acknowledgement sections. First of all, I would like to acknowledge my supervisors, Catherine, Steve, Ataharun, and Helen, for their very constructive comments, support, inspiration, and providing me for motivation and always keeping me confident that yes, you can do it. Also, I should mention that my supervisory panels give me every freedom and flexibility to do my work, whatever I want. I want to do here, okay, do this. I want to do in this way, okay, no problem, do this. So I have been given the full freedom and flexibility to do my research in my own way. So I'm very grateful to my supervisors. Then I want to thank Fanner School. All the staffs in Fanner School, they were super welcoming, super supportive for me. Particularly, I will tell Fanner that you have given me a very comfortable office room. I can't describe how much productive it is for me. Being in this room, in this office room, I have published 5 papers throughout my last 4 years, 3 from PhD, 2 from my previous work. And I should mention that during COVID lockdown, when I was stuck in the home for a few months, what I only miss is my office room. I greatly miss it. When I should go to, I always write to my supervisor, when can I go to my office? Please allow me. Please tell me as an emergency student or emergency staff. But I am not emergency staff. But so I was badly missing my office room. So thanks, Fanner, that you have given me very warm, very productive office room for me. I could concentrate a lot in my office. Thanks for this. I want to acknowledge ANU for providing me the scholarship so that I can start my PhD, I can come Australia. And I want to mention Catherine for her special funding when my ANU funding was finished and I had some leftover work in my PhD. So Catherine has supported me a lot so that there is no hassle for me. I can smoothly focus on my research and finish all of the stuff. So thanks, Catherine, for your support in those last few months. I want to acknowledge my respondents. They were super active, they're super supportive. They given me unconditional support in my research. They have provided me rich data, very informal data, sometimes some secret data, but I'm not using those things for ethical reasons. And they have put their time and effort with me. Just for an example, if you can see that these 2 gentlemen are from DA staff, and I have just interviewed them. While I have interviewed, after finishing my interview, they came to the train station to see of me. So you can understand how cooperative and supportive they were. So I highly acknowledge their support and cooperation for me. The Fanner colleagues, friends, and office mate, I'm highly thankful to you. I should mention that the corridor of Fanner is a great place for learning. Whenever I go through the corridor for washroom or kitchen, I see some of my friends, hey, how are you going? Yeah, good. Then I ask the question, how is your PhD? This is the very common second question. And all of them tell that, no, not good, frustrated, confused, stuck. So it gives me confidence. Okay, only not me. There are also some other people here. They are frustrated, they're confused. So Kamru, it is good to feel frustrated, no problem. And this is the way to finish your PhD. So thanks, my Fanner friends, that you were very supportive, very friendly for me. And I have spent a lot of time, although most of them before COVID started, indoor and outdoor with my Fanner friends. So thank you so much. Finally, I want to thank my family, my parents, and my daughter for the immense support and sacrifice, especially when you have a family, then maybe you need to trace off between the time, your PhD and your family. Sometimes my wife shouted at me Do you know how longer is your daughter? Because me and my daughter and my PhD has the same age. We started together just 3 months before I start my PhD, my daughter born, and now 4 years plus. So that's why my wife understands that. Do you know how long is your daughter? Can you buy a perfect size of shoes or pants for your daughter? No, because you don't know how she has been grown, how long she is. You only know about her PhD. So I'm sorry, I'm so bad in multitasking maybe. So at the end, my family has sacrificed a lot for me. Okay, do your PhD, finish it, and come back. No problem. So I'm very grateful. My family is not here in this room, but I say my thanks and humbly my grateful to my family for their immense sacrifice last 4 years. I don't want to extend more because we have some time limitations. So these are the references I have used in this presentation, and thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cameron. It's always, one of those challenging things when you get to the end and think about your journey. And I think what you've shown us is both your research journey, but also your personal journey. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. We do have some time for some questions. So who has questions? All right, over here.
I've already got the reputation that I ask questions. Yeah, thanks, Cameron. That was fantastic, and congratulations on the publications during your PhD journey. I've just started it. My wife's already shouting at me, so I just don't know what it's going to be like towards the end. So I wanted to explore perhaps another future direction. So we know that innovations adopted when there are market drivers and the private sector acts. And when I look at your network maps of DAE and non-DAE farmers, if mentally I put those together in my mind, so the DAE farmer map was DAE and research institutes at the centre, and on the non-DEA, those were at the periphery. Mm-hmm. But the one institution that sat within the middle of both was local input dealers.
Yeah.
Okay, so put the two graphs together, local input dealers become a larger, more significant component. And then in your presentation, you said that, a key innovation in this space is early maturing rice. Okay, if we can get early maturing rice being used in these flash flooding situations, the risk is brought down because the rice comes off the field before the floods arrive. Okay.
Yes.
So, and you said that farmer input dealers don't have early maturing rice. They just don't have it. So farmers don't get access to it. So what's your view in terms of, as you're advocating that there needs to be a transformation of these extension services, what's your view in terms of the role that local input dealers play in a transformed extension system in Bangladesh? Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks for great questions. In Bangladesh, in generally the local input dealers, if we say from private companies, they give some extension services only to sell their seeds, their products, and giving that, hey, my product is very good, the seed is very good, you can cultivate all those things. So this is a general situation, but in our area, the matter is this crop is cultivated only once in a year. In general, in Bangladesh, we cultivate 3 crops, but in our area, the 4 or 5, 6 months is ready for the crop cultivation. All other areas are flooded. So for only one window, a small window of crop cultivation, there is less private companies are working there. They focus on some other areas. This is the one issue. And another issue is from the government side, it is also told that whatever the government suggests you, which variety, A, B, C, D, E, they are good, go for it. But if private sector brings some super variety, suppose from China, they have brought one variety, the private company, but the DA and government don't support. They tell that if you get bad result from those private company, we are not liable. If you get good result from our supported, we will help. If you face any problem here, we will show you anything. Because these are from research institutions, so DA has the check back with the research. Hey, the farmers are facing this problem. Can you help them? So they have the system here to feedback. But for the private sector, they don't go for this risk. No, I will not take the risk. This is the case. Instead of these things, I think that private sector has a great scope here. You see the non-DA farmers, they are not connected with DA, don't get support from DA. As a result, where they will go? In this case, I would say that they are more innovative in some extent. They go for private sector. They take the risk. Whatever the seed is, no problem. I will cultivate in a small plot. I will see if I get good result. I will harvest or cultivate more in the next year. So definitely there's a scope for the private sectors. And in terms of weak tie, I saw that in private sector, they have a lot of new information for their business. They also take risk. They also 5 or 10 kg every year. They collect some new seeds and sell to the farmers. So in this way, if we focus on private sector and if we give them some support, definitely they can contribute to transformation in the house areas as well.
We have one question here, and then we'll go to just online questions.
Yep, so some online questions. From Stephen Crimp, how has DAE responded to your recommended changes?
Okay. Throughout my research, I have in some of the recommendation I have got from DAE as well. The staff, they told that we have this problem, these are the facts, these are the systems, so we need to focus on this. And I have also discussed with them that these are the support or these are the change DAE should need. But due to my research scope, I could not identify what support or what are the instrument or policy change should be specifically for embracing those new rules. So this can be a way for, or this can be a region to further explore. But the recommendation I have done, they both match with my recommendation and their thinking, because I have get those things discussing with the DA staff.
Thank you, Kamaru. I'm Ian Fry from the Fenner School. I have two questions. The first one is DA, have you been able to measure whether DAE advice is helpful? Particularly, were you able to measure that strong ties with DAE led to higher crop yields? So that's a measurement of success of communication. And the second one is, what is the most effective form of communication by DAE staff? Is it workshops? Is it radio messages? What have you been able to assess that as well? Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. DAE recommendations. In my third research question, sorry. In my third research questions, DAE mostly tell about technical knowledge. Do high yielding varieties, cultivate early rise varieties, these sorts of technical issues they are saying. But as we know that in society, technology itself is not enough. There are social people, there are policy, there is context. We need to consider all those things. So this is the lackings in DAE. They are still in top-down approach. They are telling that, hey, this research product is very good, just cultivate it. But they don't consider the local people. That's why I mentioned that the DAE should get the feedback from the local people. We are suggesting about the technical solutions, but is it good for you? Do you have the ability? In some cases, yeah, farmers tell that, yeah, new rice variety, very good. We learn a lot, blah, blah, blah. But what is the seed? DAE cannot give it. In some cases, DAE tell that, okay, in some cases, okay, just learn. Maybe in the future, you will get those support. At this moment, it's not the case. We cannot give you all those support. So I am not saying that DAE's support or DAE's advices are wrong, are bad. No. First, they need to be contextualized. They need to be adapted with the local people, local situations. And in addition to this, DAE should provide the various instrumental support, logistical support. Maybe it is beyond the scope of the DAE currently, but they need to embrace those things. DAE need to manage from other departments, from government, so that these policy and this logistical support can be provided to the farmers.
So just on that one, Cameron, in terms of the Ian's question, did you see, for example, differences in the yields between the DAE supported farmers and the non-DAE? Like, does it seem to be more appropriate, the support they're getting or not?
Okay. In terms of exact the yield, I cannot tell the 5 ton of rice or 6 ton of rice, not in this way, but I can tell that DAE farmers, in some cases, they are stuck with the formal actors and believing in the formal actors, but non-DAE farmers, I have seen that comparatively, they are more innovative because they have no support, or they think that we are in a risk. We have no support from government. We are not government people. Here the case is DAE and non-DAE farmers. The difference is DAE farmers thinks that we are getting information from agriculture. Okay, it is good. We are getting some support, so we have some. But non-DAE farmers feel that we are in a risk. We don't get support from agriculture organizations, from research. So we need to find more things. We need to be more innovative. Maybe we have no one to support. We need to take more risks. So they are trying some new varieties. So these are the elements that I have found there, that non-DAE farmers are more innovative in some cases, but in some cases, DAE farmers, they feel that, okay, at least we have the information sources. This is the difference I have found. And in terms of effective forms of communication, it depends. In most of the cases, DAE farmers, and I see that for DAE, they are working with group formations or group work. Group work helps. If in this group work, the DAE secure the farmers or help the farmers to raise their voice, then it is helpful. There are a number of group of people, they can talk to each other, they can ask questions. And in Bangladesh, nowadays, mobile phone or cell phone is good for good communications, especially for the front level extension workers who are working in the front area, in the front level. They are connected with the farmers. The farmers call them, but it is not in all the cases because they are overloaded, the DAE staffs. So for those reasons, I see that the group method still the best method for them, but there are some conditions that in that group method, group communications, they should be given flexibility. They should be given empowered so that they can talk. Still now, the farmers feel a bit top down. That is, if I get any questions or if I ask any questions that are not talked by DAE, the DAE may get intimidated. They may be angry. So these are the scenes. I saw that after the group discussions, they don't tell anything, but after the group discussion, when they go to tea stall, talk by themselves, they ask a lot of questions. Even they talk to me a lot of questions, but they don't tell those things to DAE. So besides the communication channel, also some structure of DAE, the way of the dealing, it needs to be reconsidered.
Thank you so much, Cameron. I think, we see from this research the complexity of, it's not necessarily good or bad, but there are some real challenges for all of the different actors there. And I think your research has really been able to sort of shine a light on some of those really tricky challenges, and often they're cultural as well, and they will take quite a while to transform. As we're out of time, I just wanted to also say thank you so much to you for being a wonderful PhD student. And a particularly generous participant in, I think, the FENA community, and I know many of the other PhD students have really appreciated your support and goodwill and continuous smile, just making those moments of our collective community a really important thing. And I've greatly appreciated how much structure you put around your research. I think it was one of those PhDs that was designed from the beginning and actually sort of completed in a way that it was sort of expected to be. So congratulations again on this moment. Thank you so much to everyone who supported Cameron, including your family. I know that they have sacrificed a lot, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.